Why do we miss the people who hurt us most? Why do so many of us find ourselves in the same relationship over and over again? Just with a different person? You feel a deep connection, but you also feel a constant, simmering anxiety. You crave closeness, but the person you want it from seems to value their independence above all else. You lean in, they pull away. The more you try to connect, the more distant they become. If this feels painfully familiar, you are not imagining it. You are likely caught in one of the most common and painful dynamics in human psychology, the anxious-avoidant trap. Consider the story of Sarah and Tom. When they first met, the connection was electric. Sarah, who thrives on closeness and communication, felt she had finally met someone special. Tom, who is self-reliant and charming, was drawn to Sarah's warmth. But a few months in, the dynamic shifted. Sarah starts to feel a familiar knot of anxiety. Tom seems distant. He takes longer to text back. He makes vague plans. The reassurance she needs from him isn't coming. So, Sarah does what feels natural. She tries to close the gap. She asks, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" You feel distant. To Tom, this feels like pressure. He doesn't understand the problem. He's just been busy with work. He feels crowded, criticized, and suffocated. So, Tom does what feels natural to him. He pulls away. He says he needs space. This, of course, triggers Sarah's deepest fear, abandonment. The knot of anxiety becomes full-blown panic. She pursues him harder, sending long texts, asking to just talk. The more she pursues, the more he withdraws. The more he withdraws, the more she pursues. This isn't a story about a bad guy and a needy woman. This is a story about two perfectly mismatched attachment styles, locked in a painful, self-perpetuating cycle. To understand what's happening to Sarah and Tom, we have to go back to the 1950s to a psychologist named John Bowlby. He developed what's known as attachment theory. The theory is simple. Our earliest bonds with our caregivers create a blueprint, an internal working model, for how we expect relationships to function for the rest of our lives. For our purposes, we're focusing on two of these insecure attachment styles, anxious and avoidant. First, let's look at Sarah. She has an anxious attachment style. As a child, her caregiver was likely inconsistent. Sometimes they were warm and available, and other times they were distant or overwhelmed. Love felt unpredictable. As an adult, this translates into a deep fear of abandonment. She's highly attuned to her partner's moods, constantly scanning for signs of disinterest. She needs frequent reassurance to feel safe in the relationship. When she feels her partner pulling away, her internal alarm system goes off. To self-soothe, she protests by calling, texting, and seeking connection to calm the anxiety. Now, let's look at Tom. He has a dismissive avoidant attachment style. As a child, his caregivers likely discouraged open displays of emotion. He was taught to be tough, independent, and to handle his own problems. He learned that emotions were useless or even dangerous, and that relying on others only leads to disappointment. As an adult, his independence is his fortress. He sees intimacy not as safety, but as a threat to his freedom, a potential for engulfment. When Sarah gets too close or makes emotional demands, his internal alarm system goes off. To self-soothe, he deactivates by pulling away, intellectualizing, minimizing her feelings, or focusing on work. He craves space. Now, here is the psychological trap. You would think these two types would repel each other, but they are consistently drawn to one another. Why? Because they each validate the other's core wound. The anxious person is drawn to the avoidant's mystery and independence. Subconsciously, they think, if I can get this self-sufficient person to finally commit to me, I will finally be secure. The avoidant person is drawn to the anxious person's warmth and energy. But when that warmth turns into a need for reassurance, it confirms the avoidant's deepest belief: intimacy is a trap. People always want too much from me. The anxious person's pursuit validates the avoidant's need for distance. The avoidant's distance validates the anxious person's fear of abandonment. It is a perfect, painful, self-fulfilling prophecy. Each partner's attempt to feel safe is precisely what makes the other feel unsafe. So, take a moment and reflect. Does this dynamic sound familiar? When you feel a partner pulling away, does a panic rise in your chest? Do you feel a compulsive urge to text them, to solve the problem, to close the distance right now? Do you find yourself attracted to people who seem emotionally unavailable, hoping you'll be the one to fix them? Or When someone you're dating starts to talk about the future or wants to know how you're feeling, do you feel a sudden urge to check your email? Do you feel suffocated, criticized, or trapped? Do you find yourself thinking, I just need some space, and then find reasons to end things even when it all seemed fine? It's crucial to understand this. Neither style is bad, neither person is broken. They are survival strategies. They are the brilliant, subconscious ways your younger self learned to protect your heart in a world that felt unpredictable or unsafe. The problem is that the strategy that protected you as a child is now the very strategy that is preventing you from finding a secure connection as an adult. So, how do you escape the trap? The answer isn't to find a secure person. The answer, first, is to become one. Awareness is the first and most powerful step. You can't change a pattern you can't see. If you have an anxious attachment, the work is to learn to self-soothe, to sit with the anxiety without acting on it, to build a life so full that one person's distance doesn't feel like the end of the world. The work is to learn that you are your own anchor. If you have an avoidant attachment, the work is to learn to lean into discomfort, to recognize that the urge to flee is just a feeling, not a fact, to practice identifying your own emotions and communicating them even when it feels vulnerable. The work is to learn that true independence includes the ability to choose interdependence. This isn't easy. It's the work of a lifetime, but it is the only way to break the cycle. The anxious-avoidant dance is exhausting, but by understanding the steps, you can finally choose to stop, take a breath, and learn a new way to connect. If this video made you think differently about your relationships or gave you a moment of aha, you're in the right place. We explore the depths of human psychology every week. Subscribe for more insights into how and why we connect. And in the comments, let us know, which part of this cycle do you recognize most in your own life?